You've got your new Wildsyde eBike. Now, let's help you assemble it. This video will help with the assembly of our Shadow electric cruiser and its sister model, the Hunni Bunni. Open the box and remove the foam pack containing documentation, components, tools, and the headlight assembly. Remove the fender and stay rods packed together and located on top of the front wheel. The rods may also be packed separately elsewhere in the bike box. Here are the items you should find: welcome letter, unpacking and assembly instructions, quick start guide, manual, quick release skewer, fender and fender stay rods, headlight, pedals, battery compartment keys, battery charger unit and AC cable, and bell. Also supplied are touch-up paint and a basic set of tools, but you may prefer to use your own as we have done in this video. You will also need scissors or cable cutters and bike grease, which are not supplied in the box. Before removing the bike, carefully cut the zip tie attaching the front wheel to the frame, then remove the wheel from the box. Now lift the bike out of the box and from each end, carefully place it on the ground on the back wheel and onto the front fork. Removing all packaging, carefully cutting away tape and zip ties. Be extra careful not to accidentally cut through bike cables or into other components. Now we're going to fit the handlebars to the stem. Remove the clamp by undoing the bolts with a 4mm hex key. Once removed, precisely center the handlebars onto the stem, making sure the cables aren't tangled. Replace the clamp and bolts first by hand, then lightly tighten them using the hex tool in an X pattern. We will tighten them fully when we customize the rider setup later on. Now we are going to fit the quick release skewer onto the front wheel. First, remove the adjusting nut and conical spring, applying a small amount of grease to the skewer axle. Insert the skewer into the wheel hub, ensuring the quick release lever is on the opposite side to the brake rotor. Replace the conical spring and nut, making sure the narrow end of the spring faces in towards the wheel. Give the nut about 5 half turns ready to go into the fork dropouts. Remove the fork spreader from the bottom of the fork. Remove the brake caliper shim. Move the front wheel into place, carefully aligning into the fork dropouts and onto the quick release skewer. Ensuring the brake rotors precisely align between the calipers. Tighten both the skewer lever and adjustment nut, closing the lever once tight enough to leave an imprint on the palm of the hand. Now rest the bike onto its kickstand. This can be adjusted using the hex bolt at the back of the stand to the desired length. Next, we are going to fit the fender to the front fork. Remove the nuts from the bottom of the fender using a 10mm wrench or socket and a hex key. Holding the screws in place, move the fender stay into position, ensuring that the rod ends are angled down as shown. Replace the nuts onto the screws and firmly tighten. Remove the hex bolt and nut from the rear crown of the front fork with a hex key and wrench. Now place the fender above the wheel, align the tab behind the rear crown, replacing the hex bolt and nut, and tighten firmly. Remove the hex bolt from the bottom of the fork, ready for the fender stay. Then align both holes, replacing the hex bolts and tighten firmly. Now we are going to fit the headlight. Remove the hex bolt and nut from the front crown of the front fork. Align the holes of the headlight bracket and crown, replacing the hex bolt and nut, and tighten firmly. Next, locate the small headlight cable, carefully studying the connection ports. The pins inside are very delicate, so be sure to meticulously align the arrow on one port with the groove on the other. Then, once certain, push together to connect. Now we are going to attach the pedals to the cranks. Locate the right and left pedal as marked on the ends of the spindle threads. Apply a small amount of grease onto the thread before attaching, then align the spindle and thread, always turning the nut towards the front of the bike on both sides. Tighten both firmly with a 15mm wrench or specific pedal wrench. Next, adjust the seat post to the desired height. Rule of thumb is to align it with the bottom of the pelvis, then tighten. While it's sitting on the saddle, adjust the handlebars to a comfortable position. Then fully tighten the hex bolts on the stem clamp using a hex key, although a torque wrench set to 5 to 7 Newton meters is advisable. Also tighten the hex bolt located underneath the stem, designed for fine adjustment. It is also recommended at this point to fully tighten the headlight nut and bolt using 13 and 14mm wrenches respectively. Tilt the headlight down to illuminate the roadway and tighten securely until there is no movement at all. The very last thing to fit is the bell, positioned to the left-hand side of the handlebars with the bell lever just above PAS buttons. Now inflate both tires to the recommended pressure, according to rider preferences and conditions. It is now time to charge your battery. Remove the cover from the charging point underneath the back of the gas tank and insert the charging cable. Plug AC into the socket to begin charging. Once plugged in, the charging unit indicator light will turn from green to red as soon as charging begins. It is necessary to charge the battery fully for 6 to 8 hours until the charging light has turned green. That's it. Now watch the quick start guide video to get to know the controls and functions of your Wildsyde eBike.